So I said while playing Sonic Generations that I wanted to know what was going on with Maria, and nobody told me that it was a war crime. Hi, I'm Bridget with Bridget's Never Played, and recently I tried out the Sonic franchise for the first time in my entire life, which also meant that I had never seen the movies, despite hearing good things about them. A regular person probably would have started with the first movie, but as we've established, I love an anti hero, which makes Shadow my favorite, other than Rouge. But she doesn't have a movie, so I picked this one. The Sonic fans were so awesome to me in my last video, and I don't think I felt that amount of love and support from a fan base since I debuted my channel with trying out Metroid, and even beyond that. Not only did Sonic fans show me support in that initial video, so many of them subscribed and said that they were going to check out the rest of my channel as well, and it was just really touching and really humbling. And I wanted to say thank you by taking everyone's request to play Sonic Frontiers. I'm working on it. But I had also taken a week off of making content to celebrate my bridal shower, so I haven't gotten quite as far into the game as I would like before writing an essay about it. The next best thing, when a book report is due and you're short on time, is to watch the movie. Plus, the timing couldn't have been more perfect since I had just gone to see the Mario Galaxy movie this past weekend. I'd always heard that the Sonic movies kind of blew Mario out of the water, despite the insane amount of money that the Mario movies make at the theater, and I wouldn't say I fully agree because I feel like these movies are just doing different things. Sonic is clearly trying to ground itself in some rules of reality, and there's a clear divide, especially in Sonic 3, of the jokes for kids and the jokes for grown-ups. The Mario movies definitely are trying to make sure that the joke is always funny to both. And I think the Sonic approach actually ended up working out much better, in my opinion. But these movies are trying much harder to get the older nerd audience in seats. So while Sonic is popular, it doesn't quite have the same universal clout that Mario does. Mario movies can probably get away with being exclusively lovable to kids, knowing that adult fans are likely to pop in and see it on a rainy day, and still appreciate it even if the primary target for the dialogue is little kids. The way that Sonic 3 divides up the comedy is pretty smart too. It's largely Tails, Sonic, and Knuckles delivering jokes for the child audience, and the Robotniks are the ones delivering the jokes for the older audience. Though, not gonna lie, Shadow did make me laugh out loud a few times, and Knuckles made me laugh out loud essentially every time he spoke. As I mentioned, even though it has fantasy elements, Sonic is still grounding itself in the real world and abiding by most real world rules, as opposed to Mario, which isn't particularly grounded in anything and is a bit more surrealist. However, I do feel like this grounding in the real world doesn't pay off in the Maria subplot of all things. In fact, I feel like that's the one part of the movie that felt like a real fumble to me. So I had to return Sonic Generations to Gamefly before beating the Shadow levels, so I never actually got an answer to my question about who this character was. Naturally, I went and looked it up, and I was not expecting the answer to my question to be that she was the victim of a war crime. Child murder in my Hedgehog game? And, like, it's not one of those cop outs where it was all a misunderstanding and she actually got sent to the Shadow Realm. Like, she gets shot to death in every interpretation of this game, in every universe, in every, like, anime version. Which I think adds to her characterization because there's also the detail that she is very ill. She's terminally ill. And her heroism in sacrificing her life in the first place is tied to that. There's this very tragic undertone of, well, I'm gonna die anyway, so I might as well save you. And does the movie do anything with that? No. She's kind of just Shadow's manic pixie dream girl, and her death is an accident in the movie. In all the ways this movie was willing to have depth and have bite, they completely took it out of this subplot. If you don't know what a manic pixie dream girl is, it's essentially a female character that has no real depth or personality of her own, other than being inspiration for a guy. And specifically, she's usually kind of quirky as well, and she's childish but somehow wise at the same time. And some of this works because Maria is a child, but I think this portrayal still falls under this umbrella. I'm not claiming that it seems like Maria is fleshed out in other media. I actually wouldn't be the judge of that. This is Bridget's Never Played, and as we've established, I'm a complete newcomer in this series. But this is a feature length movie, and this relationship is supposed to be like the heart wrenching catalyst of the film's events. And the movie only has so much time, I understand that, but this movie also has a 4-minute dance number. I feel like you could have given her a little bit more to work with. One of the major themes of the movie is the impact of our choices. How people can make bad choices for good reasons, or in the heat of anger, they can make bad choices. And yet they cut out any moral ambiguity in Maria's murder and instead turn it into an accident, going out of their way to have the guy from Ark trying to stop it from happening, and her death just being an accidental explosion that somehow didn't kill the two people she was standing between, it just killed her. It's like you took away a major moment of her agency so as to not make Lieutenant Walters, who's a character in the movie, look bad. You could have had a moment that connected to this theme about choices. You had Maria making a choice to stay behind and launch Shadow, and you had Walters making the choice to try and stop it by any means necessary, leading to her death. And everyone lives with the consequences of their actions. Their choices should haunt the narrative in a way that they don't. And sprinkle in the fact that I don't get the impression that this is supposed to be a romantic relationship in other media, and yet somehow the film gave it a very romantic undertone. From a complete outsider's perspective, this movie very much montaged these two like they were a couple. And at first I was gonna say they could probably fix this by casting a younger actress, but looking at other depictions of Maria, it seems like the franchise kind of just doesn't know how old they want her to be, and her appearance varies from looking like a young teen to a late teen. They also went out of their way to refer to Shadow in the flashbacks as a kid in the scene where Maria is about to die. And I'm wondering how much of that is because they wanted this to be like a teenhood romance? Which then would start to beg the question of, is that okay? Because, like, he's an alien hedgehog, but he's also sentient on a human level, so. I can forgive the Mario Galaxy movie for being kind of shallow because I don't think it was ever painting itself to be anything else. But the Sonic movies clearly wanted to have a little bit of bite to them. They wanted to have more depth, and for all this movie's willingness to have edgy jokes, it felt like it needed to dumb down the emotional center of its main character. Other than that, I genuinely thought this movie was hilarious, and we had a blast watching it. They have some extremely funny writers on that team. Despite not being overly invested in the fandom, I did pog a little bit when Amy Rose showed up, and I could see myself going to see Sonic 4 in the theaters on a rainy day. It did make me feel just a little bit more connected to a franchise I was always on the outskirts of. Thanks for joining me for this quick Bridget's Never Played, and next week we will actually be playing something. In my final entry to the Sonic series, where I will be trying out Sonic Frontiers, I'm about 2 hours in, and I definitely have some thoughts, so I will see you guys next time.
How do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? How do you find a word that means Maria? A flippity gibbet, a will-o'-the-wisp, a clown.